There's a sheet of paper that's nice and orange and yellowish. It says Fall Fest Training. I'm going to walk you through this, but I need to tell you why we're doing a training. Because you might be thinking, we've done it before, we know what we're doing. We've done events before, and we've done Fall Festival events before. But one thing that we've lacked is people have come, and people have gone. And then we see them a year from now. That's a problem. Okay? We're a church. We need to be able to meet people, connect with them, bring them in, love them, share the gospel with them, and Fall Fest is a tool to do that. And so we're going to use this tool to evangelize. That is our goal. And so I'm going to walk you through some things to remember no matter what you're doing. If you're baking cupcakes and you're just going to show up and deliver and hand those out. If you're a game person and you're going to conduct a toss game or whatever. If you're someone who's serving food, if you're someone who's setting up or taking down, you're going to come in contact with people and you need to know what to do. Okay? What we usually do is, hi, glad you came. Bye, glad you came. Right? And we miss the in-between. So, I'm going to make it easy for you. Here's what you do. Talk. Okay? Just talk. Talk to people. Even if you don't know them. Especially if you don't know them. One thing we tend to do is we go to the people we're most comfortable with. So you see your church member friends and you go and you hang out with them in this Fall Fest environment. While our community is on our grounds, we're grouped together. We don't need to be grouped together. We don't need to be doing what's comfortable for us at this Fall Fest. And so, remember to talk. So, 4 things. Make sure you make time for people. When you're considering what it is to talk to someone, if you're like me and you're not a conversationalist, I get it. It's difficult for me to carry on a conversation. I can stand in front of 1,000 people and preach. But put me one-on-one with someone, and it's like I go dumb. And I go blank, and I can do small talk okay for 2 or 3 minutes, but past small talk, I don't know what to do. And so I have to remember to make sure I take time for people. Jesus took time. Look in, if you don't have your Bible, that's okay. I'm going to read Luke 19, verses 1 through 5. It says this, He entered Jericho, that's Jesus, and was passing through. So at Fall Fest, you're going to have a job. And you're going to need to do your job. Jesus was passing through. He had no intention to stop. There was a man named Zacchaeus who was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but he was not able because of the crowd, since he was a short man. So running ahead, he climbed up a sycamore tree to see Jesus, since he was about to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, because today it's necessary for me to stay at your house. Jesus, though he was passing through, took time for Zacchaeus. He noticed him. He didn't just, hey Zacchaeus, how are you? Deuces up there in the tree, and pass through, because that's what he was doing anyways. He stopped and he took time. We need to remember, if we're going to minister to people, we must take time. It's vital to take time. So, that means if you're doing a job, that's okay, do the job, but don't forget that people are more important than your project. So take time for those people. Also, try to keep in mind, it's gonna have to be deliberate for us. If I'm hanging out with Rosalind and Marty, I've got to remember, I can see them every Sunday and every Wednesday. I've got to go and get away from them. Not because I don't like them, but because the point of Fall Fest is for me to be with our community who has already come to us. Okay? We need to understand Fall Fest is backwards from the gospel, from God's command. Jesus says, go, not have events for them to come. Okay? We need to understand, since they're coming to us, we already have this great opportunity. So, have time. Second, if you're going to talk, you have to ask questions. This is where Marissa has helped me a lot in my conversational growth. She asks questions, not just yes or no questions. That conversation ends real quickly.
No.
But ask conversational questions, open-ended questions. Get to know them. Maybe you sort of know them, you've seen them around town, you went to school with them, and now they have kids, and your kids go to school, but you don't really know them. Ask questions. Jesus asked questions. John 1, I'm going to read verses 36 through 38. John is, so I'll read 35. The next day, John, that's John the Baptist, was standing with two of his disciples. When he saw Jesus passing by, he said, "Look, the Lamb of God." The two disciples heard him say this and followed Jesus. When Jesus turned and noticed them following him, he asked them, "What are you looking for?" What a great open-ended question. What are you looking for? Now, Jesus very easily could have asked, "Why are you following me?" Or, "Are you following me?" That ends the conversation. But he said, "What are you looking for?" He opens up a conversation, and the disciples answer, "And where are you staying?" Right? They want to know more. See, when we ask questions, we're opening up the tidal wave of conversation for us to be able to lead a conversation into a gospel conversation. We've got to ask questions. Here's some examples. You've got them on your paper in front of you. How did you hear about our Fall Fest? That's going to open them to share, not just a single word answer, hopefully. Tell me about yourself. I know it's not really a question. You can make a question. Would you tell me about yourself? What do you and your family enjoy? Right? So these are questions that are going to open up, and they can even be questions that guide you into sharing the gospel with these people, whether you know them or not. And asking questions lessens the intimidation factor. If they're new and they're coming into a church environment, we're very churchy people. We use churchy words. When we ask questions and we're unintimidating, that's going to help kind of open them up to be willing to hear anything we might have to say after we ask all of our questions, and we can lead the conversation somewhere. Third, linger. To talk, linger. Now this is where our culture, our American culture, says no. Okay, so everything about these people is going to say they're going to want to move on. You're going to want to move on. You'll ask questions, everything will be fine and dandy, and then you kind of reach the point and you go, "Well, have a good evening," and you walk away or they walk away, right? But here's where we have to have another intentional focus of lingering. Jesus lingered. John 4, verses 4 through 6. He had to travel through Samaria, so he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the property that Jacob had given his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, worn out from his journey, sat down at the well. It was about noon. And if you know the rest of that story, this is where the Samaritan woman comes in, and Jesus ends up essentially sharing the gospel with this woman, and she is saved. We need to know, and we need to recognize Jesus lingered. Jesus could have gone into town with his disciples, but it says he was tired. You're going to be tired. You're going to be tired of talking, tired of working, tired of all these things, but still linger. Sit down and talk with someone. Show that they matter to you, that you'll actually have a conversation with them, that you'll ask them, want to know about them, want to draw out who they are, so that it's more than an evening of fun and candy, but it's a new relationship blooming. Linger. Now, I mentioned Americans, we're very unlingering. If you go to a Latin American nation, they linger. And they linger up in your face, right? It's very close, it's very affectionate. Americans are, well, let's do the small talk thing. Let's talk about the Cowboys, the weather, the new cold front that came through, all that stuff. And you'll talk about it. You'll have 5 conversations with people about those small talk things. We want to go past the cold front, and we want to get into the heart and soul of the matter. Linger. Now, again, if you're like me, lingering is not natural, and it's not easy. You have to intentionally tell yourself, "I'm going to linger." I know I could be going and doing something. That's my problem. My problem is I see something that could be done, and so I say, "Well, would you excuse me for a second?" and I go. Right? Because something needs to be done. I rationalize it. And I have to constantly tell myself, every Wednesday night when I'm with students, and students are in our doors, I have to constantly tell myself, the trash doesn't need to be taken out right now. Linger with the students. Talk to them. Love them. Help them. Go get something for them. I'm lingering. We've got to linger. It's unnatural for us, but it needs to be done so that we can have conversations that are meaningful. The last thing, if you want to remember to talk, have kind-heartedness. Again, something that's unnatural for us. Kind-heartedness. Very long word. I hope it sticks in your mind. I didn't just put kind. Kind-heartedness. There's something unique and vibrant about kind-heartedness. Matthew chapter 9, Jesus shows us kind-heartedness, verses 9 through 13. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the toll booth, and he said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed him. While he was reclining at the table in the house, many tax collectors and sinners came to eat with Jesus and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" And when he heard this, he said, "It is not those who are well who need a doctor, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. For I didn't come to call the righteous, but sinners." If we look at Jesus' kind-heartedness, he does a few things that we often don't. He saw the person that everyone overlooked. How kind-hearted are we when we often overlook the person who we always overlook? See, when we huddle together in our First Baptist Church group, we're overlooking those who need to be looked at. Jesus, in his kind-heartedness, saw Matthew. He went over to Matthew, right? He approached him. He didn't wait for Matthew to come to him, to leave his busyness and come to him, but he approached him. There's kind-heartedness there. And then Jesus, now he didn't, I'll grant you this, he didn't ask questions, right? He didn't do the TAL, but his kind-heartedness drew Matthew in to where he went to his house and he ate with him. He communed with him. And that kind-heartedness was pushed up to when others who were holy saw Jesus hanging out with someone who he shouldn't have, someone who didn't deserve his company, someone who wasn't in his economic status or social status. Jesus' kind-heartedness drew Matthew in, and Matthew ends up becoming a part of Jesus' group of disciples. Not only that, but Jesus had the opportunity to teach others who perceive themselves as holy. Why are you eating with those people? Why are you talking with them? Do your job. The game needs to be taken care of. We're running out of cupcakes. The trash needs to be taken out. All those things may be necessary. People are more important than the project. Your kind-heartedness in taking the trash out is wonderful. Your kind-heartedness in communicating with someone and drawing them in to the gospel of Christ is better. So let that kind-heartedness well up within you. Not because we're just trying to do an event so that our community can have something fun and safe to do. That's wonderful. But when we give time, when we ask questions, when we linger near people, when we offer kind-heartedness, the kind-heartedness of the gospel, this fall festival is going to turn from being something that families enjoy to being something that families are drawn in, and their lives and their generational, their family trees are changed. Because mom and dad come to church after hearing about the gospel at Fall Festival. On a night where evil is celebrated, the gospel is preached. And they're drawn in. And their kids are drawn in because mom and dad start coming to church. And they're saved. If you were here 2 weeks ago, you heard about our pastor's story. That it was something like this Fall Festival, where people didn't just say, "Hey, come get some candy for your kids, let's have a game and then go about your evening." But they pulled that family in. And now we have a faithful pastor who's a follower of Christ, whose family tree was changed. That's our goal. In all the family fun and all the good things that we're going to do and all the community safety, wonderful. But if we don't talk, then families are going to come and go straight to hell. That may sound harsh, but that's scriptural. That when we simply have a smile for people who come and Jesus loves you, and that's not the gospel. That's just a statement. And I understand every conversation may not lead to the gospel. But there may be conversations that start a path to the gospel. And so be that person who will talk, who will give time, who will ask questions, who will linger a little bit past the common norm, and by kind-heartedness draws people in to have opportunities to share the gospel. The bottom little phrase on that orange or yellow sheet, the time that we'll have at our Fall Fest will be a vital opportunity to serve and connect with our community for the sake of the gospel. That's our goal, for the sake of the gospel. People are greater than the project. Okay, if you need something to remind you, people are greater than the project. Just say that over and over. And that's going to take you from, oh, the trash can is full, oh, but I'm talking to someone. People are greater than the project. Okay? We can clean up the trash later. People are greater than the project. Continue to speak that to yourself. Ask God to well that up within your heart so that people are greater than the project. If you struggle with sharing the gospel, I have some resources and they've helped me tremendously. Sharing Jesus without freaking out. What a better title. Like, are you kidding me? This was me. Now, I mentioned I can preach to 1,000 people, and I mean, I go through my notes, I slam that sermon down, it's done, and I walk off the stage and someone wants to come and talk to me, and I go, I just shared Jesus with 1,000, and one comes up and one has questions, and I'm done. But sharing Jesus without freaking out. Yours to read, if you'd like it. If you share it with someone else or give it back so I can share it. This is a book that I've tried to share with many people. It's a quick and easy read. It's not mechanical. So if you're looking for like 3 things for a process, it's not mechanical like that, but it's very practical. And then if you are a bit of a, like, you're kind of good with evangelism, but you really want to understand all this stuff about how you might have shared with people over and over again and nothing happens. Like, I shared Christ and they're done. Like, they walked away and they were like, thanks, good info. What do you do with that? This can be a book that encourages you. Evangelism and the Sovereignty of God. It goes into just an explanation of biblically what happens when we evangelize with someone. What happens when we have that gospel conversation? Well, this is a great book that can help you kind of grow in your understanding, and it takes a lot of the pressure off of you. You don't save people, I don't save people. Talking isn't going to save people. But you can be used by God in order that they may be saved. That's Paul's prayer. In Romans 10:1, my prayer, my heart's desire and prayer for them is that they may be saved. That's what kind-heartedness is. And so as you're preparing for the games, for your job, wherever you signed up for Fall Fest, remember your primary job is to talk. Easy enough?